Hello, fellow diasporas of the world. We are here again, meeting for Living in Between Worlds. Today we have myself, Vanessa, Sonia, and Nuria with us. And every 2 weeks, we come here live to really gather and just talk about any topic that comes up for our lives, something that kind of relates to what we're curious about. So for those of you who don't know about Living in Between Worlds, we are a community of first and second generation immigrants and diasporas of the world. And yeah, we just like to go deep on certain topics and have meaningful conversations about certain things that we might not have grown up to talk about, or even in our current circles of friends, we might not have this opportunity to talk about certain things. So today we are talking about human design. This is something that may be new to some of you. I know I myself have kind of dabbled into it for the last couple of years here and there. And it's actually surfaced into my life again recently. So it was really interesting when Sonia had picked this topic, because it was kind of like, oh, interesting, because I'm actually like really diving into it as well again. So we just invite you to come and join us with curiosity, just to learn kind of and listen to our stories and perhaps learn something from us. And hopefully it'll spark some curiosity in you to explore, do a little bit more exploring for yourself, to get to know yourself a little bit more. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it to Sonia to kind of like facilitate our conversation today.
Yay, thank you, Vanessa. Happy to be back. It's been a couple weeks. I'm happy to be here. So yeah, like I really wanted to talk about human design, not because it's a tool that I mean, it's not like I've been using it a lot lately, but yeah, something I've been kind of like going back to it. And I think why I think it's relevant to the group. I mean, first of all, we had spoken, like you and I, Vanessa, like you told me you were kind of, getting yourself familiar with some of the concepts, your type, your strategy. It's all like words that I will explain shortly. But I think I see it related to this group because I think for me, it's one of those tools that I found at a time in my life where I was kind of looking for meaning or for a sense of belonging kind of thing. This is something that I have, you know, felt a lot of the time in my adult life. It could be, partly because we are diasporas of the world. We are living in between worlds. When I did therapy for the first time, that was also the first, like many years ago, that was also the first time when I really understood that, like, oh, like the fact that I grew up kind of a big chunk of my life is in another country with a certain set of circumstances and ways of being, and that then I move here, like it's normal that that kind of like um I don't want to say like fragments, but it kind of create like different parts of yourself that then you kind of like have to like integrate like different concepts and so on. So in this like in betweenness and feeling that I never belong anything, well, I've always been like a searcher and a reader and a consumer of many different tools. And human design, I would say, came to my life at a time where I had tried the whole kind of productivity culture, the kind of like, you have dreams, you work for them, which is kind of more of the the kind of messages and conditioning that we receive as immigrants. Even it's kind of like you have to work twice as hard to be noticed and to be taken seriously and so on. But just yeah, consuming a lot of kind of like inspirational, like you have to work hard, you have to like really honor your schedule and respect your commitments and show up if you want to, like, for your business, for this or that, for personal for health, exercise. And I was kind of like, I did all of that. And then it's like, yeah, now I'm exhausted, you know? And then human design comes and talks about like energy types, and like it's a mix of like astrology and this and that. It's super confusing to understand at first, but then it gave me some insights that just like completely blew my mind, because I'm like, oh, wait, there's a different way to look at, you know, reality, to look at myself, to look at people. So just to give a quick summary, so human design, it's like a kind of like a system that integrates concepts from like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, and something else that I forget. And it basically, it was created, or it was like channel, or you know, given to the world by this person named Ra Uruhu, which coincidentally he was born in Montreal, apparently, before he kind of like went to Ibiza, have like all the mystical experiences, and you know, probably a few substances there and whatnot in the 80s. And he kind of like came up with this whole thing where there's like, it's like a typing system. Like if any of you like things like the MBTI, is it like the Myers-Briggs personality? If you like any of that, like you're probably gonna like this, because your brain likes to put like order into the world. So it's a typing system where, according to your birthday and your hour, your time of birth, you kind of belong to a different type of energy. And so you have like projectors, generators, manifestors, and reflectors. And each one of them have like a different kind of like strategy and way of being in the world. So that's basically it. But I would just like begin by saying like, this is the context as to why this kind of like matters to me. And then I can say later like how I kind of got back into it. But I'm just curious to hear from you, like, I mean, since you accepted to do this live, like what has been like your introduction to it? Like how did you hear about it, like first impressions and whatnot? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I can go first. So, you know, it was so interesting. As you were talking about the, you know, kind of the strategy and the structures of kind of your day-to-day production, like how to like create productivity in your life. And I think you know, for myself, I can so relate to that, because when you're into personal development or self-development, nowadays, that's what they're calling it, right? Like it's just, um, you get you get told a certain way to succeed in life, right? And so I jumped on that bandwagon and I was like, yeah, you know, coming from 9 to 5, there's a certain way that you're supposed to work. Okay. But now that you're an entrepreneur, this is the way you're supposed to work, right? So depending on who you're following, who your influences are, and who your teachers and mentors are, they're going to give us different systems to follow, right? That a strategy that worked for them. And sure, same thing for me. I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to apply, I'm going to test this out, I'm going to try this out. And I started to realize that, oh my gosh, this isn't actually working for me. Like, sure, I created some results, but at the same time, why do I feel so drained at the end of the day? So when I came across human design, it was through another friend who kind of mentioned it. And it's so interesting how, I don't know what it was like for you, for, you know, how it came into your life, but it's kind of one of those things where you hear about it and you're just kind of like, okay, I'll take note of it. I'm not really going to get into it. And then someone else talks about it. It's like, okay, I'm a little bit more interested, right? And then, so that's kind of how it happened. I started to hear a little bit more about it. And then I was like, okay, do I really want to get into something else, learn something else, right? But I was at that point where I was like, okay, I have one way of being that kind of works for me, but there's still something off. Like I still feel like my energy is off. And then human design kind of, knowing what type I was, I'm a projector. I started to hear more things about projectors, and I was like, oh, okay. Now I'm resonating with this stuff. Like now I can see why I don't have energy all the time. Whereas like, I feel like sometimes I'm so stimulated, I'm so wired that I'm like, where did all this energy come from? Like, I just really couldn't understand. And I think we talk about labels all the time. And this is where it's like, just to kind of put it out there, this system is not a system to like use to label ourselves with. Okay. It's another kind of guide. That's how I see it. It's at first I did use it as like, oh my God, I'm a projector. This is the way I'm supposed to be. Right. But then I've learned that, okay, no, this is here for me to at least give me permission to take my naps. There's a reason why I need my naps. And it's like, oh, okay, because that's how I actually generate more energy, like how I actually release other people's energies. Because my type, I tend to absorb energy. And so I have a lot of energies and influences that are not mine. And sometimes, and that's where human design is so great, because it shows you kind of like, this is your truth. So we talk about authenticity, we talk about, being your true self. It's like, okay, human design has actually given me a way to actually explain why I do certain things and not have to apologize for it. Like it kind of gave me that permission to be like, oh, okay, I can relax into this. There's a reason why, like, I don't have to be like everyone else. And it's kind of given me that relief of like, okay, I can relax into this. Truly, I mean, it's helped me in my being my true self journey, kind of like, what does it mean to be my authentic self? It's helped me to give me those guidelines to say, okay, I'm going to say, choose in this moment to let that go, because that's just not how I function, at least for now. It's not what works for me. So human design has kind of come and go for bits. Like I got really into it. And then I decided to like, no, I'm going to detach from it, because I know I'm starting to like live my life through like, oh, I'm a projector. I need to like do this and do that. Right. Like I was like, okay, as soon as I'm getting to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to follow something to a T, I'm like, no, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to release it. And so now it's coming back to me in terms of like, yeah, I'm curious again about it. I want to go deeper. I do see how expansive it is. I love how it does give us an opportunity to celebrate humanity, celebrate how we're all different, how we're all unique. That's truly the essence of like why I love human design, is because it's helped me to see everyone's uniqueness and really celebrate that, and be able to say, hey, like we all have these gates, or we all have these like channels, but we just experience it differently. Each one of us experiences how we use our energy differently, and it's really given me that permission. So yeah, I think it's interesting that you picked this, and I don't know where this conversation will go, but I love that we're opening it up to like, hey, let's just talk about this and see what happens. So thanks for bringing this up.
Thank you. Gloria.
Well, I have to say that today I chose not to be a good student, so I didn't explore the topic. And I did this totally on purpose and just to show up with what was happening in my mindset about the concept. Because, of course, I've heard human design, but I've never tried it myself. I'm curious, but lots of things came up while I was listening to you both. In one hand, I was like, I want to do that. I want to try that. And at the same time, I was like, but I don't want to be on, I don't want to leave the label. And then, because that's going to hold me back. And then at the same time, I was like, it's interesting how at the moment we name a process, it's like, it's I don't know how to say this. You know, when at the moment I heard human design is like, it's not spiritual, it's not like, you know, kind of for witches, don't worry about that. It's a process, because the human design, the name sounds like human geography, like you know, these fancy big words that is like, okay, it's a process, so you can just implement the process and go for it. So um I think it's, if I think about marketing, it's a great way to sell a spiritual journey. Human design sounds interesting, sounds like there's science behind it. So if someone who might be a little bit skeptical can try that just because the name is human design, which is, I think it's fascinating. But also I have to say that, I mean, lately I've been so immersed in the immigration world because I work for a nonprofit that serves immigrants and newcomers. Um, so of course I've been noticing lots of cultural shocks, lots of holding back, lots of regrets, lots of uncertainties from people from different cultures. So when I was listening to you guys, I thought, what an incredible tool this could be to put it out for those newcomers to say, yes, this is a tough journey, right? But there is a process, an internal process that happens at the same time that you are doing your legal process to be a newcomer. So I thought, this could be an incredible tool for people out there that are like changing their identity because sometimes they have to, or they are, you know, escaping from something that was really tragical in their lives, and they no longer know what to do. And just I mean, I'm sorry that I'm bringing this up, but it really hit me, right? I don't know if you heard this news about the guy in Chinatown who was stabbed, and it just hit me because um, you know, the guy is a refugee, an Afghan refugee. I'm not saying nothing that is a secret. It was in the news and it was unleashed by the police office. But anyways, he came here in May. He survived Taliban, right? And he came here with this hope. And he was like a delivery guy from First Keep the Dishes. And he was just, you know, tying his bike to a tree, or I don't know, to get the next order. And there's this guy who came and stabbed him. And a group of random strangers helped him. So because of that help, he's at the hospital, and apparently he's gonna make it, right? So I think about this guy. So he became a different person to leave Afghanistan and come here. And now being here and trying to adapt, to learn the language, to work, something tragical again happens in his life. So what's going to happen with this person? And I feel like this kind of, I mean, I'm sure that he's not going to leave the hospital saying like, okay, now where is my human design tool? No, but I truly believe that we more and more we have to talk about these tools for people to navigate not only the system, but navigate through who they would like to become, even when tragic is all around. And by what you've been sharing, guys, I feel like this is a great tool to discover that. I always say, like, it doesn't matter what you try, just try it. Right? Like, if it doesn't work for you, but there is a tool that has worked for someone else. Try it, and that's going to help you somehow. So of course I'm curious about the tool, and again, everything that we share here in this conversation is for people to just find out by themselves and do their research, right? We're not recommending that take this aspirin or not, but whatever resonates with you out there from this conversation, just try it, because we, as first or second generation Canadians, we've been exploring and experiencing how it is when you feel like you're in between. And it's not only about being positive and saying like, this shall pass too. No, sometimes you need a tool that helps you to reinvent yourself and to seriously optimize the best skill that you have on yourself. And sometimes to optimize that skill, or sometimes to discover that skill that you don't even know you have, right? So probably if you're really spiritual, or if you love to be like reading or hanging out at night because you're super energized, it's okay. And probably there's a skill that you've been holding back because following the book that wouldn't be allowed in your culture or in the new culture that you're living in. So I think it's an incredible tool, and I want to know more.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Nuria. That was so like beautifully said, because I mean, with everything that you both share, like I'm really glad and kind of fascinated by where this conversation's going. This is what happens when you show up and then you go with the flow. I definitely think that it's funny because Vanessa, you were saying something around, I mean, seriously, I relate to so much of what you just said, with you kind of taking the tool, then kind of like trying to apply it kind of like all like perfectionistic style, and then kind of taking a break, because I have gone through the same process. And I think definitely that's one of the potential pitfalls with any of these tools, really. I think, like Nuria said, a lot of these tools, I mean, we have to remember, after all, that we live in a capitalistic world. And then, there's like people trying to make a living, or, trying to sell stuff. And in that process, of course, with the marketing and so on, this has also happened with astrology. Things can get packaged in such a way that, that kind of like entices everyone to kind of like get deeper and deeper and deeper, and kind of like the classic, like, yeah, but if you want to know more, you now have to buy this course or this thing and that. So knowing that there's that potential, and I mean, I went through a period where I was kind of like, I mean, and I noticed this in me, but now I'm kind of like more like just laughing at that thing where it's like, I get into a tool or like a specific philosophy or whatever. I get into it, then it's like I go super deep, and then I go like completely the opposite way and be like, no, it has like no value whatsoever. And then it's like I come back and I pick up like all the pieces, and then I'm like, yeah, no, actually that was very useful. So like I feel like I'm kind of like that with human design, where I was like, the first year I was like, oh my God, trying to understand everything, trying to like, do this, do that. Then like going through a period where it's like, this is just marketing. This is just like whatever. It's not real, blah, blah, blah. And then kind of like going back and picking the pieces and being like, yeah, no, actually, like there was value in that. And like you said, Vanessa, I think the value sometimes can be can be as small or it can be as life-changing. Like you said, you mentioned something very specifically about the type that's called the projectors, that the idea of rest, it's something that, I mean, for you understanding that you were a projector, that gave you permission for it to be okay for you to rest. And I think that has like enormous value. I mean, that's like one of those like skills that we can spend a whole like a whole lifetime kind of like honing and perfecting, because we have had discussions about rest in the past in the group, and it is not something that's taught, that's modeled after us. It's something weird. It's like we don't have, I mean, we have a few, depending on your family, you may have had, people taking naps or something, but like it's not something that we see a lot as valuable, right? On my hand, like more specifically about the generator type in human design, there's something, so in the generator type, and here we're getting in the technicalities of it, in the generator type in human design, you have like a subtype of a generator that's called a manifesting generator. And it basically, there's something kind of technical about why a manifesting generator it's a manifesting generator, but without getting too much in the details, because I don't want this conversation to turn into like a human design kind of like how to read a chart class, but just the essence that I got from it. And anyone else who might do their charts online, it's free to do if you have your time of birth or an approximation of your time and date of birth. If you are a manifesting generator, the biggest theme of that type is the idea that we tend to be kind of jack of all trades. We tend to be the kind of people that kind of thrive having multiple projects. And that is something that really kind of blew my mind, because I was really kind of going through life with the whole idea of like, oh, but I have to like stick to one thing. I need to like, I just need to like I need to like find a career, or like, I mean, first of all, overcoming the shame of studying political science and then doing nothing with it. And then being like, and the dissonance, the pain, the confusion of being like, why can't I just do one thing and stick to it and just focus on one thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was always fighting, because I was always like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do it. I always wanted to do like, I want to dance, I want to do this, I want to play this thing, I like doing that, and have so many kind of like interests and facets and things like that. And then human design comes, and it's kind of like, hey, when you're a manifesting generator, it's actually healthy for you to not try to do one thing. That was just like, that was like life-changing, because I was like, what? Like the permission giving to just be like a jack of all trades, to be someone who's like, I may have a business and maybe a second one on the side. Like I may have like 3 businesses, but then a hobby on the side, and for it to be okay. But it's like for me, like the shame that I had from like trying to just do one thing, it was just like it was crazy. It was like very this desire to like, yeah, kind of like be what you're not or something, but kind of like prove that you can be like everyone else, whatever that means. So that for me, at least, that was like one of kind of like the values that I really got, that permission to have and explore, and to have something that actually tells you like, try doing all the things and see how you feel. Because then there's also like that fear when we don't, you hear the advice for someone else like, oh, rest, do one thing at a time. But then for me, it was like, no, if I'm high on my energy, it's actually nice if I can have multiple. I mean, if I'm using like my energy correctly, resting as well. It's not like generators don't rest. Yeah, rest, it's really big. And when I rest, I usually go like kind of like deep, doing nothing, watching Netflix, rest. That too was something, it gave me permission, because then I was like, I'm doing rest wrong. How can I be watching so many episodes? And that too was like, no, it's actually quite normal. You have like high intensity, for a while, and then it's like you go on a period, and every time for me that has been so true that it's like I go out of my my cave of like Netflix and kind of like doing nothing for like 2 days, and then it's like I get so many things done like effortlessly in like the third day or something. But yeah, sorry, I was like seeing in the comments that okay, that Nuria. Okay, Nuria, you didn't know your type, but you're also a manifesting generator, apparently. Okay. And it resonated with you as well? Like, have you, yeah, you want to share more?
Yeah, I would say, like, I mean, for all the things that I've been sharing with Vanessa since I met her, like, yeah, I'm on that space of, I think something that immigration gave me was the permission to be whoever, because nobody knew me. So, and on the other hand, I had to make it, right. Like it was an option. I had to pay my bills and da 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 da. So I literally invented a new persona, and that led me to manifest, like, but really, like, tremendously in different areas in my life. So I when I was listening to you, Sonia, when you said the permission, I would say not only to be, but to change. Like, I'm really curious about that tool. I'm gonna, like, of course, I'm gonna do the quiz. I'm gonna look for it. I'm gonna do it. But because I can feel the energy of change, right? Like, because also I feel like again, I don't know. I didn't do the research. I didn't want to come here with all my knowledge as a good student. But I feel like we're changing all the time, and I am sure that if you do your quiz now and you do it again in 5 years, something is going to shift. And if you're, for instance, this massive manifester of things, you're creating more, and you're resonating with a different energy inside of you, that you're on fire, and then you become another being. And that for me is fascinating, like discovering that in different stages in life you can design your persona again and again and again. It's fascinating for me. It's again the permission, but it's, yes, of course, the permission to be whoever you want to be, but the permission to change, and taking that, those, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a tool where there is nothing good or bad. It's just something that is part of who you are, right? Like, if you don't like to be up at 5 a.m., it's not because you're lazy. It's because there's something in your persona that works differently, right? And if you grew up listening that you're lazy, you're more likely to show up lazy as a lazy person in your relationships, in your school, in whatever you are, because the label is bigger than the possibility to take that advantage of one tool like this one to change. Like, well, what if I can create and manifest a lifestyle that works in the schedule where I can be and change more. So that for me, seriously, it's fascinating, right? Like my little one, for example, she's unstoppable at night. Like, it's just crazy, right? And yes, okay, you have to go to school, but I never said go to bed, for example. Never said that. Or in the morning, it's like, I told you have to go to bed earlier because now we struggle in the morning. Like, no. And it's crazy how much she creates just by that. Or, over the weekends, like, she's like, at night, she's just this vampire around the house. But for me, it's fascinating because it's like, yeah, she's just exploring and creating and doing animation and doing like rings, and it's reading about her crystals. And it's like, wow, like she can create. I don't know if she's going to be a crystal consultant, I don't know, but if so, probably she's going to reach out to those clients who are awake at 3 a.m., right? Because I'm sure there is a target for that at that time. So it's, I'm really intrigued about this tool. Really, thank you, Sonia.
I love that you brought up Luciana, your daughter, because from my understanding with human design, it's actually a lot of people had actually used it to understand their kids. At the beginning, I guess in the 70s, I guess, when it was, a lot of people were using human design to understand their kids and being able to raise conscious kids. And so to me, in combination with what you were saying, Nuria, about being a newcomer and having this tool, right? Like same thing, like for me, I was like thinking about like how cool it would have been as a kid to have this tool, right? And to have this early and be able to kind of understand yourself a little bit more. And it's I love that, Nuria, you're already like living your strategy. You're already like experimenting with your type and you don't even know it, right? And that's the thing. That's the beauty of human design, because it's very much like when you are truly kind of following your design, it's very in flow. You are allowing yourself to be who you want to be. And I think if anything, I think I keep coming back to the permission piece. It's kind of like, yeah, we grew up in a capitalistic world. We grew up in a very masculine dominated kind of like masculine energy world, right? So this is where it's like, if anything, it kind of gives you that permission to let go of those societal expectations, let go of the social expectations, and really kind of understand how you work and how like what actually works for you. Like Luciana being up all night, and it's amazing that she has the freedom to do that, and to understand. And personally for myself, there's nights when I'm like that too. Like I will wake up in the middle of the night, and I used to make it such a big problem that I was like, oh, I'm unable to sleep. But with human design, I started understanding, oh, these are my intuitive hits. I gotta just like let them flow and go with it, right? And during those times in the middle of the night, I have so much energy. It's like, and I create so much, and I'll be able to go back to sleep at 5 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 7, having 2 hours of sleep, and then do a workshop, do a training for a whole day after that, and have the same amount of energy. So that's where, to me, it was like proof that, oh, okay, I'm not actually, I'm actually using my energy in a way that actually does serve me. So when I understand how my energy works and I'm using it the way that it does serve me, I continue to have energy. I don't actually run out if I learn how to manage it, learn how to work with it. Right. And so I just love, like, to think that if I had this tool when I was a kid, then yeah, I wouldn't shame myself for like being a loner sometimes. I like my quiet times. I remember I would spend hours and hours like doing origami, making bracelets, like just doing crafty things on my own, and I would get lost in it, like just lost in it. And my friends would call me out, but I'd be like, no, I'm like into this. I want to do this. So, but yeah, not shaming myself for having that. And like, we would label, like I used to label myself as a nerd because of that. Like that was kind of what helped me fit in, but it wasn't a nice label to have. If I had like, oh, I'm a projector and this is how I work, it would have been way nicer than, okay, using the label of a nerd, right? Like, so, but that's where it's like, yeah. And I would read books, and that part of my design is like, I'm good at studying on my own instead of like learning through lectures, through someone teaching me. I actually learn better with reading. And I used to read, like, I had like classes when I was like 10 years old because I read so much, but I would read all the time. And yeah, again, the nerd gave me that out, right? Like, but if I had, I really highly recommend, and I've heard other parents use human design with their kids, like just to be able to understand, oh, this is why, like to stop comparing your kids, because that's kind of what tends to happen is like, okay, my first kid acts this way and my second kid does this totally opposite, and not really understanding why they're that way. But I love that, you know, when you use it with your kids, then you can understand, okay, this is, you know, their design, they like to actually receive more positive affirmations, like, whereas another kid just wants to be left alone. And being okay with, okay, my kid wants to be left alone, and that being okay, and nothing is wrong. It doesn't mean you don't have a deep connection with your kids. So that's where I can see the benefit for parents, and even for themselves, to understand how they can communicate with their kid that might be a different type, or their kid that's the same type. But yeah, I think human design is it's kind of like, you can go really high level and you can gain benefits from high level, like just by knowing what your type is and learning what your type is already enough. And like Sonia said, you can go super deep and detailed and like really understand the inner workings of like even kind of how you respond to certain things, how you might work better with people, like, and certain other people might end up working better on their own. There's a reason for that, right? So that's where it's like giving you permission to go as deep as you want, or just keep it high level. You would receive a lot from that as well. So yeah, that's something I wanted to touch on. Just like, it would be really neat to like have this as kids, like in school now, to understand how they work with their energies. And that's why, like, nap time, like some kids can do nap time, some kids can't do nap times. Like when we have a school system where every single kid has to do the same thing, it just doesn't work because we're all built differently. And, you know, yeah, what if we had a school system where kids could kind of work together, like follow their energy type, and be able to kind of like explore different topics based on their energy type. It's kind of neat. I'm going to share one more thing, just something that I had learned from human design that I thought was really neat. Just if we're talking like high level, just the types, right? So if there's the projector, I just love using this analogy because it helps me understand. Projectors are the conductors. If you're thinking about an orchestra, right? So the projectors are like the conductors. So they're up front. Generators are like the orchestra, like the musicians, right? And so there's different kinds of instruments, right? Even the instruments alone, there's so many different kinds. And then what was it? The manifester is the one that kind of like runs the event, right? Like sells the ticket, or not sells the tickets, but like organizes that this is when the orchestra happens, kind of thing. What am I missing? Reflector is like the audience. They're in the audience and they're observing, they're watching everything. They're kind of like, so there's a part for all of us. Did I miss anything? I didn't miss it. No. So that's where I just love that analogy, because for a beautiful orchestra to happen, you've got to have all these different parts. And this is where, like, in terms of humanity, I love the idea where we all come together to work together in a, like, cohesively, like we are here to co-create. And there's not one type that's better than the other type. We all have a purpose. So I thought I'd share that, but yeah.
Yay, thank you for sharing that. That is like so I totally love that description. And yeah, the reflector, it's one of those types that it's like apparently it's like it's like the one that's like the less popular one in terms of like the amount of people who have that type. So it's always funny because you were going last on the reflector and I'm like, where would they go? And then you said like the audience and I'm like, oh, all right. But yeah, it's funny because in my personal life, I don't know anyone with the reflector type. So I'm curious. Yeah, too. I was like doing a chart for my dad. He may be a reflector, but then he's like, you know, like in good all like Peruvian village way in like the 40s. Of course, there's like no actual record of his like birth or day or whatever. So he's like, I may have been born this day or this other day. Who knows? So I guess I will never know the truth. Um but yeah, like so a few last few things. Definitely this is like one of those like schools of I don't even know what to call it. Like it's a school of thought because after all, they're like proposing a whole bunch of, I mean, they're proposing a way of seeing the world. I like to take this as like a perspective. For sure, a lot of kind of like like the way human design is taught and marketed and the way like people get officially trained with them and so on. It's a lot of it has like a bit of this connotation of like this is kind of like, I mean, after all, because it bases itself on like astrology, it does have this connotation of like, this is who you are, like by design, like this is your DNA kind of thing. So it's not something like in their terms would like change, quote unquote, like your type would not change because like you were born at this time and blah, blah, blah. But one way they kind of like do see the whole like interaction with the world is how they see that like different energies interact with each other. So, you know, you will experience a bit of like this theme or a bit of like this other type thing through connection with other human beings. And there's also a part of like connection with planets, but that's like, as you can see, it's a whole rabbit hole, which if you have a curious mind like I do and you like putting like puzzles together, you can seriously go for like days and years studying this. But it's also totally fine to just go like super high level, and it's also totally just fine to be like, hey, I checked it out and it doesn't resonate, and that's totally fine. But I just wanted to give people kind of like just show them quickly before we go, if that's okay with you. Should I just show people where to like do their charts and then we can just like leave it? You're muted, Vanessa. Okay. So, okay, to share the screen. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to share the screen really quickly. And for those who were interested, this is where you would go. So you would have to go to, I like to get it at Jovian Archive, which is kind of like the official, I guess, the Ra Uruhu. That's like the founder who passed away already, but that is kind of like the institution that he left. And you would go in to get your free chart. And then here, I'm just going to do mine just so that you can see. And so you would put your birthday. I'm in September. I was born at 2:14 in Venezuela. So you put all your information, and the city is just to kind of like have the time like the time zone, because I guess like in astrology and planet positionings that changes things. And so you would go into here and it would return you your chart, which has like a lot of different things. But I would get started for anyone just getting started, just get started with like the type and the strategy. And that would be kind of like enough to kind of like get started. But this is like, this centers here is kind of similar to like the chakras and things like that, and these are like the planets. So it's like a mix of different things. It can be very overwhelming or fascinating, like it was for me. I was like, what is this puzzle? I need to solve it. And then again, I have an open mind and an open ashna, so that is not surprising. So okay, I will stop like the geekiness of this here, but yeah, go to the Jovian archive if you are curious about that. But just okay, so yeah, last word, I would say like any tool that help us just be who we already are, I think have value. So yeah, I think it's one of those tools that it's worth checking out. I was super curious. I did like a quick like Google Trends. There's like a thing called like Google Trends where you can see like the interest that people have over time over a keyword, a concept. And human design has been like exploding in this in this past few years. Like it has like, I would say like, I don't know, like quadruple or something in the past 5 years, like the amount of people that are talking about it and so on. And I think it has its value in the sense that it's a lot of it's really promoting this idea of like of rest, of like waiting, like chilling out, just like calm down, which is an energy that I think we really need in this, chaotic information based era where we live, where it's easy to feel like we're like always like on a high alert, and we're always like feeling this energy. So I would say that's one of the if I were to say what is the one thing that human design promotes, it's a lot of rest and waiting and just like chill, which it's valuable.
Also,
So that's
like,
it for
yeah,
for
thanks,
me.
Sonia. Sorry, I was just gonna add to that because one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot, like the decision-making piece is also, with following your strategy, it actually teaches you how to like, because a lot of the times we are making decisions based on our thinking, based on our thoughts, like logically. But this is where I feel like, yeah, it's really, we're all wanting to listen to ourselves, trust ourselves more. And that speaks to your intuition. It speaks to your inner guidance system. And this is also something that it promotes. It's like, okay, stepping out of the mind and dropping into your body and really listening to your intuition and how to listen to your intuition. So that's where it has, like, for me, has given me permission to like, okay, Vanessa, you don't have to like try and volunteer for everything, like, which was what I was doing most of my life, because I like to help. I want to, like, I'm a guide, right? So I want to guide people, but it's like, no, Vanessa, it doesn't work when you don't wait for the invitation. It's like when you're uninvited, your presence is just a little too much. It's too intense. So it's like, oh, okay. Here's why all my life I keep thinking I'm not seen and heard. It's like, well, no, you're heard. It's just people are not receiving because you weren't invited. So that's another piece. So good.
Yeah, and I would like to add, like, because I don't know nothing about this specific topic, the way I'm gonna try it on is I'm gonna get present to all the things that I made myself wrong in the past. And then I'm gonna do the quiz. That's how I'm gonna do it, to see, like, okay, like I was carrying all over all these years this treasure with me, right? And how many times I wasted it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice way to kind of like test it. And yeah, and like we said, with any tool, it's like you test it, you try it. What I like about human design is it's that it's quite, it gives you a few ideas on how to like try some of the concepts out. Like you say the weighting or there's a few tricks for like generators too. And it's funny, Nuria, that you were saying that your daughter that doesn't have like a bedtime, that's one of the things that they always, I mean, I have heard that like for generator types, I'd be curious to see if your daughter is a generator type. It's actually healthy to like not have a fixed bedtime, but rather to kind of like go to bed when your energy has been spent. And that too for me was very fascinating, because I came from a home where I had a lot of this like mental kind of mental view of bedtimes. You know, it was kind of like the belief that it's like you have to go at a certain time because whatever it means, more discipline, or it means this and that. So that too, I was like, whoa, like, can I do that? And I mean, it's something that I use, again, like with any tool, you use it, you observe it. I'm a lot more flexible with that. It's not like every night I force myself to not have a bedtime, because it's like I have done that in the past too, in trying to be perfect and trying things. But now it's like it gives you like different choices on things to try, and then observe, and then see what's up. So yeah, that's it for now. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia, for choosing the topic. And if you are interested in joining us in this conversation, we're going to dive deeper into this or expand, whichever way you want to go, next week in our meetup. So I don't have the link in the description currently, but just go to meetup and follow us on. Just search for Living in Between Worlds and then follow us there. And I'll be posting the event in the next couple of days. So come join us in this conversation. Yeah, find out what your human design is and see if it resonates with you. And yeah, we can kind of dive in a little bit more with it next week. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for watching. And we will see you next time. Okay. Thank you. Bye.